Welcome to The Critique. Today we're dissecting a commentary on the fallout at Casey Wasserman's agency, his leaked emails with Ghislaine Maxwell, and artists like Chappell Roan leaving in droves.
It is a heavy piece. I mean, you've got pop stars on one side and sealed court documents on the other.
Exactly. And the draft struggles with that collision. So, our first point, the material frequently dilutes its primary argument by diverting into unrelated conspiracy theories.
Yeah, that was noticeable. The core of it should be this corporate rebellion, right? This internal schism the piece mentions.
It should be. But the narrative just keeps getting stalled by these anecdotes that have no real foundation and, honestly, just distract from the central conflict.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. I was following the email timeline, it was all making sense, and then bam, I'm suddenly reading about Bill Gates and antibiotics.
That's the precise moment it goes off the rails.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate for a second. This whole thing is about the so-called elites, right? And how they all know each other. The Gates story is, well, it's shocking. It's a very vivid image. Doesn't that kind of shock factor help keep a reader hooked?
In a vacuum, maybe, but context is everything. The whole point is to explain why Chappell Roan is leaving a talent agency now. When you pivot from Wasserman's actual emails to some unverified story about Bill Gates and an STI, you're asking the reader to make this huge mental leap.
So you're trading analysis for just, like, internet gossip?
You're shattering the trust. You stop thinking, wow, the Wasserman agency is in trouble, and you start thinking, wait, is that Gates story even true? The shock value actually eats the main point.
I see. It's like the writer got lost down their own research rabbit hole and decided to drag the reader down with them.
Precisely. And the fix here is just strict editorial discipline. You have to be willing to, kill your darling. The writer needs to just excise the whataboutism, cut those anecdotes that don't directly serve the main story.
So, to be concrete, the Bill Gates antibiotic story, that's out?
Oh, completely. Just cut it. It adds zero to the analysis of the agency itself.
What about that whole section on Batman? The piece spends a lot of time on Jeffrey Epstein's thing for Batman and his links to Jonah Nolan. It was weirdly fascinating, I have to admit.
It is fascinating. But again, does it help us understand why agents are trying to buy out the music branch of the company? No.
It makes it feel more like a fan theory than an investigation.
Exactly. So if you cut the Batman stuff and the Gates story, you free up all this valuable space.
Space that could be used to flesh out the actual business story. That internal schism part felt a little thin to me.
Right. Imagine if instead of Batman, we got a deeper dive into that dynamic. The agents are loyal to the artists, not the CEO. I mean, that's the story. If we just cut out the noise, we can actually hear the signal.
That makes total sense. Pick a lane. If it's a business story, keep it business. If it's a conspiracy piece, fine, but don't try to be both.
Which leads us directly into our second point, and it's very related. Differentiating between evidence and speculation.
Oh yeah, I noticed this too. The whole thing felt flat. Not the writing, but the weight of the information. It all felt the same.
That's a great way to put it. The credibility is just undermined because the author weaves documented facts, from the Hollywood Reporter, DOJ documents, real email dates, seamlessly with these unverified internet theories.
Like the SEO false flag stuff and the
beef jerky codes?
Exactly. 1 minute it's a court document, the next it's a Reddit thread, and they're presented with the same authority.
Right, like that false flag theory. The idea that the government releases documents in bursts to manipulate Google and distract us. Look, I know that's a popular idea online, but is it really a problem to include it here? It's part of the whole conversation, isn't it? It is, but the problem is how it's presented. It's laid out like it's a fact, right alongside the actual DOJ release fit. When you do that, you make the hard news feel just as flimsy as the speculation.
It's like the boy who cried wolf. If I can't trust the SEO theory, maybe the email timestamps are fishy too.
Yes, and the suggestion isn't to remove every bit of speculation, but to create a clear hierarchy. You have to explicitly label, you have to frame it.
So instead of, the government does this, you'd say something like, a prevailing theory among online researchers is that...
Exactly. Attribution is your best friend. It protects your reporting. Look at the example with the flight logs and the emergency physician.
That was chilling. The FBI report mentioning an emergency physician for 4 young women on the plane? I mean, that's a specific, terrifying detail from a federal report.
It is. But right after dropping that bombshell, the author just pivots into this rant about bureaucratic incompetence, claiming the government is lazy or complicit.
I see the problem. The rant feels like an opinion column, But the physician report is hard evidence.
And the rant just weakens the evidence. The horror of that detail speaks for itself. You don't need to yell at the reader about the DOJ right after. It actually distracts from the crime.
So the actionable advice is just stick to the FBI report. Let the facts do the work.
Let the facts do the heavy lifting. The facts are scary enough. They don't need the author's spin to land.
That's fair. You know, while we're on that, I want to talk about the voice because the tone the author uses to describe some of this stuff, it felt a little off to me.
That's our third critique point. Precision in terminology and tone. The use of dismissive, colloquial language to talk about really serious moral issues just trivializes the whole thing.
I'm guessing you're talking about the virtue signaling comment?
That's the big one. Labeling the artist's decision to leave as virtue signaling or just PR 101.
See, this is where I struggled. Isn't there a chance the author is just being realistic? I mean, the music industry is cynical. Maybe calling it PR 101 is just calling a spade a spade.
I get that perspective. I do. But look at the evidence the author actually presents. They quote Chelsea Cutler saying she feels helpless and exhausted. She's talking about her values. That sounds genuine. And then to immediately slap a label like virtue signaling on it, it feels like a cheap shot that conflicts with the quote you just shared.
It makes it sound like the author is mocking the very people they're writing about.
It does, and it shuts down any real analysis. If it's just virtue signaling, there's nothing else to say. But if you frame it as a serious business decision based on ethics, now that's interesting.
It also just feels a bit too online, you know? Using Twitter slang in a serious piece.
Right, and that brings up the other big tonal problem. Describing the Wasserman and Maxwell emails as weird old person flirting?
I cringed at that. That sounds like something you'd say about your grandparents. We're talking about a CEO emailing a convicted sex trafficker.
It completely minimizes the gravity. The suggestion here is simple. Adopt a more neutral, analytical vocabulary. Respect the weight of what you're discussing.
Okay, so instead of virtue signaling, what's a better term?
You could talk about reputational risk management or ethical alignment.
Ethical alignment. I like that. It leaves room for the idea that the artists actually care, but it's still a business move. It's way more nuanced.
Exactly. It lets you explore why they felt they had to speak out. It treats them like intelligent actors, not just clout chasers.
And for the emails, I'm guessing we should drop the jokes about bad massages?
Yeah, instead of joking about rubbing, analyze the implication. Why is a powerful executive seeking these kinds of services from an associate of Epstein? What does that say about his judgment? About his access?
It turns it from something that's just cringe into something that's a serious business risk.
Correct. And that's the shift the entire piece needs to make.
Which brings us to the end, or I guess the lack of one.
The conclusion. This is our fourth and final point. The piece just fails to land on a cohesive thesis. It ends on a note of total confusion.
Honestly, I was so frustrated by that ending. After all that evidence, all those documents, the author literally says, I give up. I don't fucking know.
It's such a letdown. It feels like the author just got overwhelmed and threw their hands up.
But isn't that just being honest? Maybe they really don't know what beef jerking means as a code.
They might not know what the code means, but that doesn't mean they don't know what the story means. You can admit ambiguity on a detail without just abandoning your entire thesis. All that tension they built up, the blood in the water, for rival agencies, it's never resolved.
So the reader's just left holding the bag?
Exactly. The suggestion is to synthesize all that conflicting evidence into a structured closing argument. You have to define the state of play, even if the final moral verdict is a bit murky.
How do you do that with loose threads, like the whole beef jerky thing?
You ignore the loose threads in the conclusion, and you focus on the rope. What's the tangible business impact? The Wasserman agency is facing a potential breakup. That's a real conclusion. The beef jerky code is irrelevant to that point.
So instead of ending on, I don't know what the code means, you end on, code or no code, the business is collapsing.
Yes, and there's a perfect opportunity to tie it back to that guilt by association theme from earlier in the piece.
Oh, that's a good point. The author spends a lot of time debating if Wasserman technically did anything illegal.
Right. So the conclusion could be, it doesn't matter. The government has a high bar for prosecution. We know that. But the court of public opinion, and more importantly, the court of artist reputation, operates on a much, much lower burden of proof.
That's the synthesis. The artists are fleeing because the association itself is radioactive.
Exactly. He may never be charged with a crime, but the brand is toxic. That is a powerful, cohesive ending that explains everything.
It changes the whole piece from a guy getting confused by files into a journalist explaining a corporate collapse.
It completely transforms the experience for the reader. It gives them closure.
You know, it feels like a lot of these points, the focus, the tone, the conclusion, they all boil down to one thing, just taking the subject matter seriously.
That's the core of it. The research is there. The documents are there. Now they just need to be treated with the respect they deserve, not like fodder for a reaction video.
So let's recap for the listener. A quick checklist for the rewrite.
Sure. First, narrative focus. Cut the tangents. The Bill Gates and Batman stories are distractions. Get rid of them. Focus on the agency mutiny.
Second, differentiate evidence. Don't put DOJ docs and Reddit threads on the same level. If you're going to include a theory, label it as speculation.
Third, precision and tone. Ditch the internet slang. No more virtue signaling or weird flirting. Use analytical language that matches the gravity of the topic.
And finally,
synthesize a conclusion. Don't end with, I don't know. End with the business fallout. The key takeaway is that the association is radioactive, regardless of criminal charges. That's the roadmap. There is a very strong, very important piece of journalism hiding in this draft. It just needs the discipline to chip away the marble and find it.
I would love to read that version. The potential is absolutely there.
Absolutely. We encourage you to apply these lenses and please submit the revised work for a follow-up critique. We want to see this cross the finish line. Thanks for listening to The Critique.